Okay, so the sectioning pattern, if you want to come around, Ashley, we've worked diagonal back, C curved into a point, another C curved into a point, and another diagonal back section through here. So we're isolating the top first to begin the graduation. Now, as I mentioned, it's very, very long here, and she finds it's way too long in comparison to the top, and we want to start pushing it back. So the idea is to begin working diagonal back sections and work from the front onwards. The way you cut the hair from front to back will encourage the hair to sit in that direction. If I went from back to front, it will encourage the hair to be pushed forward. Now through the back, as we get to the bottom, it's quite short through in here, so there's not going to be really much that we're going to be able to grab. Use some scissor over comb technique just to clean up this area and work with the natural hairline. And if you see the natural hairline, it grows in on both sides into a point. Okay, so let's kick off. We have prepped the hair with the K-Pack Luster Lock spray, and that's what we've prepped the hair with, and some H2O as well. So we're going to start working diagonal back sections. It's a little tricky sometimes around the mask, so you just got to be super, super careful. Okay, and we're going to elevate everything straight up and straight out. You might come around the other side, Ash. You see the angle a lot better. Just make sure you pick up all of the hair. Okay, and we're going to decrease in length. So there's a slight decrease, as you can see. My fingers are held a little bit tighter as we get to the ear. Okay, so the decrease elevation is from long to short. It's not square. It's got a slight decrease. So around the front, it's nice to kind of like pivot through in here until you get to behind the ear. So the next section, I stay in front of the ear, okay, and just pick up all of those little hairs. And again, be careful of the mask. Pick up all these little hairs and follow the same level of graduation. Okay, so pulling everything up, pulling everything straight out, no over direction, but you are keeping the fingers into a decreased angle. Now, sometimes people ask, what elevation is that? Is that 45 degrees? Is it 40? You know, because it's not 45, I just say decreased in length. And that could be any degrees. You know, you've got to get a real measurement to understand the exact elevation. But if you just say decreased in length, it just helps and makes a lot more sense. And then you can work that visually and technically. We have questions, do we? Already?
No.
Okay, cool. Okay, so everything straight up, straight out, and we're blunt cutting. We're not point cutting. She has blonde hair, and in this case, I want to just club cut because I don't want little steps in the hair, especially when it's a shorter haircut. Okay, and you can start to see that we've got softness there, but not as long as it was before, and it's going to be encouraged to be pushed back. So now we continue working to behind the ear. Small little sections, elevating everything up and out, and this will begin to give us the guideline that we can see. You want to make sure you can see your guideline. If you can't see your guideline, your section is too big. Don't just guess and cut. Make sure you follow the guideline and work in the decrease angle so that as you get to the back, you start blending it in with the existing length. And that's the focus here, is to work with the existing length through the back, but to reduce a lot of the length through the sides. With the top, we don't want to go awfully short. We just want to work with the hair and just make the hair look a lot fresher. Because she's had her hair pre-lightened this morning, we want the hair to be as healthy as possible. We've used the Defy Damage shampoo and conditioner and the Pro Series 1 and 2 just to make sure that the hair is protected. And that's something that we encourage everybody to use because it strengthens and protects the hair right away. Okay? So, working my diagonal sections, we're getting to the back section here, all right, making sure that our elevation is brought up and straight out of the head and following through with that same angle. And you can see as we get to the back, we work till existing length. So I'll take that diagonal back all the way down, make sure we're working to the existing length and cutting anything that's in our fingers like that, okay? So already we've reduced a lot of this length through the back, but we still have a little softness through the front. If you want to come around, keep getting this side, Ashley, this side, come this side. So I'm going to continue working the crossover, all right, and just blend this through. The reason why the angle is so steep is because I want to follow the shape of the head, okay? If you go too square through this area, it makes the head look flat. But by angling your fingers slightly, it creates more weight to give us a beautiful shape around the back through here, okay? So make sure you guys let us know where you're all from. I'd love to know what country you're from, what city you're from. It's so great to have you guys with us. Again, we're working on a very 90s inspired Linda Evangelista look. If you want to show them that image again, Ashley, just quickly go to the image on the iPad. That's the look that we're going for. Something that's graduated and a lot tighter, but still working with something that's current and making something that's more 90s modern. And you know, that's fashion for you. Fashion is like a spring, it always comes back around, but on a newer level. You know, with today's ideas, today's technology, and today's products, it allows us to create great looks and things that are modernized, but inspired by the past. And I always say, people pay for what's left on the head, not what's on the floor. So in this case, it's not about going extremely short everywhere. It's about just putting the technique in, reducing the right amount of length from the right areas, but then maintaining length in other areas so that we keep what we like and we eliminate what we don't like. All right, and that's the discipline, I think, as a hairdresser, to know where to cut it short and where to leave it longer. I'm gonna do one more section, going over to the other side here, and then I can start on the other side in front of the ear. But again, make sure the angle is there. You're following the technique all the way around until you get to the very bottom graduation, which then later we can cut. So if you want to come around, Ashley, one more time. So you can see what we've done. We've beautifully graduated this whole area. This area around the ear, we will detail later. We'll have a look at this. We'll cut it a little bit short around the ear. We'll have a look at what we want to do, but we've left ourselves some optional length. The thing I want to do here right away is I just want to cut this a little bit shorter so it opens up this temple area a lot more. Okay, and then what we could do, if you could just hold your mask slightly down, this area just come over this side, Ashley. This area just over the ear, low graduation, and we just cut that through. So we've got a little bit more of a natural edge rather than it being too polished and clean. And again, around the ear as well. So low elevation, point cut through. Point cutting through here is fine because you're working on the edge. I always like the edge more natural and grown out rather than too solid. All right, and that's personal. That's why it's called personalizing. What you see, what I see, what you do, what I do is going to be different. But just taking the random long ones out and point cutting that through, I think will look quite cute, and we can detail further when it's completely dry. Okay, any questions, please engage with us. We would love to have some questions from you guys. So we're doing the same thing on the other side. For those who've just joined, we've worked a diagonal back section, C-curve sections through the back, and we're beginning with this underneath area. And the problem that she had before was it's too heavy and too long through the ear, and each time she pushes it back, it just looks very, very bulky. She wants that to blend in a lot more and be a lot shorter, but maintain a little bit more length through the top to be able to push back or push forward. So, working diagonal back sections, everything's pulled up and out, working at a decreased elevation. Okay, you can see the decrease that I have, so it's longer on top, shorter as we get to the ear. Now, before I carry on, I want to make sure that this is the same as the other side, because there's no use cutting all of this side and then it be too long or too short. So once you've done the first section, check for balance. Okay, now you'll find that the temple area is cut short. So what I'm going to do, I can't judge that on the first section. I'm going to do two sections because of the personalizing that I did on the other side. So we're going to elevate that out on this side, if you can, come this side. You'll be able to see it better. Okay, and working with the same decrease angle and making sure that it's balanced on both sides. Keep your fingers tight and keep the scissors working, and make sure you get all the little ones around the ear. Obviously it's a little tricky with the mask. You just got to be patient and work around the mask. In this case, we're just working that elevation to the same point on both sides. So now we can check the balance. That feels good, and that feels good. Okay, let's carry on. So going to work diagonal sections through in here. and elevate everything up and out. I'm going to work this graduation quite quick. Any questions so far?
Where did you get these masks?
I believe we got them from Amazon. A friend of mine actually gave them to me, but I did check. If you want to DM me later, I believe I can send you a link so you can get those masks. Everyone always asks me about these masks. So feel free to DM me at Richard Manor on Instagram, and I'll be able to send you a link of where you can get these masks. Cool. So kind of carry on. Everything's worked with the same decrease, elevation. Make sure we get nice and tight around the ears. Okay, and working that graduation section by section. Don't rush the graduation. Always like check as you're going through. Make sure you're happy with the balance on both sides so that what you're creating is actually seamless and it suits the person that you're working on, because is so important. Okay, so just making sure that as we're cutting, we're checking it technically, but then we're also making sure it's working on the model or on the client that you're working on. So you're constantly looking in the mirror and having a look at the length that you're creating. Okay, do you guys think like it's important to try different techniques? And I'll tell you why I think it is important, is because if we're not careful, we can create the same looks by doing the same technique over and over again. So it's really good to mix it up so that you keep your, I guess, your flow up to date, but also you keep your clients up to date with some new trends and techniques that create new looks. Okay, so constantly checking previous section, making sure my fingers are parallel and at the same angle, and working until we can't grab the hair anymore, which is in this case just above the occipital. Okay, crossing over to the other side, you'll start to see the previous guide, and you just work with that same guideline so that you're meeting the other side and making sure it's technically balanced. It's probably the last section. Let's check it out. Okay, and then work just the very edges through in there. Now, love to cross-check, make sure that we're the same on both sides. Yeah, that's good. I'd also like to check technically. I feel like around the ear obviously needs a little bit more detail. So low elevation and then point cut. So it's a bit more natural, but you're addressing the very perimeter. If you can just take that part down. Okay, put your head like that for us. Brilliant. So we're just combing all that flat. Okay, keeping the length, but just kind of all those little long hairs we're getting rid of. So it's a lot cleaner. And in front of the ear as well.
What is the significance to parting that way in the back?
Good question. So the reason why I've worked into a point is so when we work the graduation through the top, it will create some different shifts of weight, irregular weight. So you've got a corner through in here, you've got a corner through there, and you've got a corner here. So as we're connecting and working that together, that will create little shifts of weight in the center and on the two corners. Very subtle. We don't want any steps in the hair, but it allows me to create something that's a little different when the hair begins to fall. And you'll see that in a very, very subtle way as we continue with the haircut. Okay, so I feel like it's still just a little long through here. So I'm just going to go through and just cut a little bit more off, because as it's drying, I can see the weight, and the weight's just a little too heavy for me. So I'm just going to cut that a little shorter. Again, just cleaning up the top part of the layer. Okay, and just making sure that I'm happy with the way it's sitting. So you want to be cutting technically, and you want to be cutting visually. All right, technical because it's what makes the haircut last 6 to 8 weeks. And then you want to work visually because that's what makes the haircut suit the individual that you're working on. And in this case, we're working on Sky. We're looking at her face shape in the mirror constantly to make sure that what I'm creating is actually working on her. Suitability is everything. You know, there's no use of doing a great technique and it doesn't suit the individual. So that suitability factor is everything. Do you agree?
Absolutely.
She agrees. Okay, so just checking for balance. I wish I could see what I was doing. There we go. Thank you, Ashley. You're doing a marvelous job. Already that's squared up the part around her face a lot more. So good. Okay, I think what I'll do the scissor over comb a little bit later. I want to just focus more on the shape right now. Then we can have a look at the back as it dries. So let's take this all out through the top. I'm going to just take a radial section. I always like to split this radial through here. So we got the back from the front. And again, I don't want to take too much length. If you go to that image again, you'll see that the hair is quite long on top in comparison to the sides. So I think that's what makes it really cool and gives it that 90s effect, is to have the longer layers on top and not go extremely short like a crop. We want a little bit of length because we want to be able to style it back as well, which I think will make this look so cool and so fresh. And sometimes, you know, it's not only about the haircut, it's about the way you style it as well. So in this case, I would like to style it going back so it just looks a little bit more iconic and similar to Linda Evangelista's look from the 90s.
Are you still using 7-inch scissors?
No, in this case, I'm using the Mitsutani 6.7. If you can see, Mitsutani 6.7. These are great. I'm into the sword. This is nano powder metal. Great scissors, guys. Mitsutani have fantastic scissors. Okay, so now I'm going to approach this classically. I'm going to start from the very back and work towards the front. So I'm doing the opposite. Before I started from the front, working towards the front, back. Now I'm starting from the back and working towards the front. Now, what I want to do here, I'm just going to point cut this. I'm not going to go short. I'm just going to break that up by very steep point cutting. Now, because it's blonde hair, you don't want to come too much on an angle because then it will leave little steps in the hair. So you're just doing very subtle weight reduction. Okay, we're not going shorter. We're just reducing the weight because we want to keep the different lengths through the top, but we don't want it to be a heavy step. So we're just going in and we're just reducing weight through in here. Okay, we're not going shorter. And that point cutting takes that weight away from me that we can then check again. And we're pivoting all the way around. Pivoting all the way around. So we're not taking diagonal sections. We're pivoting from the center and we're just reducing weight. Okay, so it kind of visually connects, but it's not actually technically connected. What, is there a funny comment?
Someone wanted to know why you cut your hair that short.
Oh, new year, new me. I wanted to start fresh and go a little bit shorter. Do you guys like it? Give me some thumbs up. I'm a bit insecure, I'm kidding. Hey, new year, new look. I thought I'd do something a little bit different, but I think I might grow it out. Some friends of mine have said it looks really, really good. So it grows out, we'll see. I might keep it, I might cut it short again, we'll see. I have to say, it did feel so good shaving my hair. It was a good feel. Okay, so you could see, I just want to show you this last section, Ashley. Can you show them? So you could see it's still disconnected. We're just reducing that weight in there. But if you look, it's still disconnected. But because of the elevation, it will sit nicely through there. And we can always check it and reduce more weight if necessary when it's dry. Okay, so moving that away, working now my fingers. Have a look. When I was on this side, this is a good tip for those that struggle with finger position, body position. If you're right-handed and you work graduation on the left side, your fingers should be pointing up. If you're working graduation on the other side, so as I come this way, look what my fingers are doing now. They're actually pointing down and I'm standing on this side so I can see the technique. Okay? Point cut through in there just to reduce that weight. Make sure you pull that out. So have a look at the whole shape. And it's almost like chewing it off, but your finger position is the opposite on the other side. So pivoting sections, classically like a graduated haircut. We call it classic graduation. And then we point cut that through and that will give us a little bit more of a weight reduction and visually begin to blend in the top part. Again, the top we don't want to go too short. We want to keep a lot of the length through the top. So if I go too short through here, it would just set me up with the wrong guideline in front of the ear. And you'll see what I mean as we progress through the haircut. Cool. Let's move that away, it's in front. Last section through in here. I'm standing all the way through in here. Okay, this is where you'll get the most disconnection. So you just point cut that through and you visually connect it. So even though it's technically disconnected, visually it will be connected, and that's the key through here. And that's what gives you that shifted weight that we discussed a little bit earlier. Now, before I move on, I just want to check for balance. Make sure I'm happy with the length on both sides. Always, always, always check for balance. I don't think as hairdressers, we're too good to do this. We should always make sure we're happy with the balance. I think it reassures the client, but also reassures you that what you're doing is actually balanced. And if you feel like you need to reduce a bit more weight or length, you can just cross-check. If it's completely off, you just go back in the same direction that you cut it. Okay, loving this, loving this. Okay, now come around the front, Ash. I'm going to take a center parting through here, all right, from the back to the front, so we can separate both sides. And we're going to start to have a look at the way it's sitting and the length that we have on top. Okay, let's have a look in the mirror. Cool. Now I'm going to push the fringe forward just for now because I don't want a strong split. So let's leave that forward. At least I know how it's going to sit from the front and from the sides. So come with me, Ash, from the sides. This is where I want this hair to sit, kind of around here. So working diagonal sections through the very sides, what we're going to do is connect the hair. This is where a bit more hair will be coming off, and high elevation and just visually connecting but taking a lot of that length off, keeping excess weight, okay, and working that through. So as you get to the corner up here, have a look, you just blend it in from the back. That's the back, that's the front. You're just going to point cut that through and blend that through, but keeping that chewed off effect with the point cutting. One of you guys might ask, can you use a razor? Absolutely, you can use a razor. There's no right or wrong with what tools you use, and there's no right or wrong with what technique you use. This is the technique that I'm choosing to use for this particular look. But you could always mix it around. Probably this side's better because you can see the guide, Ash, from this side. Okay, and you can see as we're getting to the front, I'm going to start being horizontal. So I'm going from vertical to horizontal. I'm going from vertical, Ash, to horizontal. Look, because I'm pivoting from the crown. Everything's pivoting from here. So have a look at this. I pivot again from the crown as I get to the front temple area or the corner of the brow. I pull everything up and out. So I start vertical. So my fingers are more vertical as we are here. I point cut that through. So I blend it in visually. And as I lower my elevation, my fingers parallel to the diagonal, and I'm almost like from vertical to horizontal. And this is the length that you could decide to choose, and it is completely disconnected from the underneath as we get here. So you go from blending to disconnecting. Have a look. So when I wet the hair down, excuse me, if I wet all that down through in here, and as I get through in here, see it starts to build a little bit more weight just above the ear. Now I might go a little bit shorter through in there, again, because I'm looking in the mirror. So I'll just, again, come back through in here, diagonal section, make sure I'm happy with the length, point cut that through, and keep in mind the angle of the point cutting needs to be subtle, okay? Because if you're too aggressive with your point cutting, you're going to get little steps with blonde hair, especially with graduation. So that looks good here. This is all reaching nicely. My elevation is lowered slightly as we get to above the ear, and we're just going to cut a little bit more off there. And then I'm going to show you the picture of why we're using this particular technique. Okay, because you'll see as I show you the picture that inspired us for this look, it has a little more weight around this area, and this is just setting me up to layer the top. Okay, last section through the front. Let me just comb that down. Okay, so you could see already how it's gonna give you a little bit more weight just around there. Come over to the picture again. Can you see what we're creating? It's a little bit more weight. We're going from graduated, blended in, to a bit more heavier through the front, okay? And that's the technique that we're doing for this Linda Evangelista inspired look. The look that we want to finish off with, for those who have just joined, she's one of my favorite models from the 90s. And there's a look that I love. It's going to be like pushed back like that, but a shorter version of this, okay? So it's got that bold 90s Linda effect. Okay, next section through in here. Last section, so we're going to elevate this. Look at this, elevate. Now we're all just horizontal because we want this all to reach, and I'm just point cutting the little bit that needs to be cut off. There's not much hair coming off here. And I want to stress this to everyone that's listening. As hairdressers, people pay for what's left on the head, not what's on the floor. Okay? I know that sounds simple. It could sound silly, but it's so true. I think people think the more people pay, the more we got to cut. It's knowing where to cut it shorter and where to leave it longer that makes a good haircut. Okay, so it's not having to cut an inch off here, an inch off the sides, and an inch off the top. Not necessarily. Not if you're changing the shape. We're altering the shape, we're changing the shape, so we're going shorter in certain areas, and we're leaving it longer in other areas. So let's carry on and continue with the side here. Okay, so going to wet that down again.
Which YS Park comb is that, and where could they find it?
That is a YS Park comb, actually. Which one? I'm not sure the name of this comb, guys, but it's a YS Park comb. I like it because it has the fine, the wide end, and it has that slight three-quarter tooth just underneath to be able to take your sections nice and clean. But it's a YS Park comb, correct. I guess yspark.com. I got it from New York when I was living in New York at a store that I don't remember right now. But if you DM me, I could find out for you. All right, so doing the exact same thing on the other side, fingers are pointing down. So we start off with a slight diagonal section, fingers are parallel to the diagonal section. All right, elevating everything up and out, and we begin to point cut that through. Okay, and that will give us a nice blending as we continue working pivoting sections from that area. Okay, so we go from diagonal forward, my fingers are diagonal forward, parallel, and just make sure your point cutting out isn't too aggressive, because again, you could leave little steps there. Okay, now before I carry on, I want to make sure that what I'm doing is the same on the other side. So comb everything flat, looks probably a little longer, but that's fine. I'd rather it be longer than shorter. Okay, pulling it out, it's a little bit longer through in there and a little bit longer. So I've just got to go back in here and go a little bit shorter. It's better to do that now than later, okay? Because then the whole haircut will be done and you've got to do it all again on the side. So do 1 or 2 sections, make sure you check for balance, and then carry on. Take small sections. The smaller the sections, the more precise your haircut will be, okay?
If it's not water, what other Joico product would you use to keep the humidity on the hair?
The hair moist as we're cutting it is the Luster Lock spray, which is what I did use in the beginning. I'll show them in case those people have just joined. This is the Luster Lock Multi-Perfector Spray. Shake it well and it works brilliantly for protection and moisture and shine. Don't get too heavy with that because it does leave a little shine. So you can be generous with it, but not overly generous with it. If you need to re-wet the hair, just put a bit more of that and a little bit of water, because you don't want the hair to be overly shiny. I want the hair still to be clean and healthy, but not overly shiny. So that does feed it with protein and it protects against the UV and the thermal as well. Great little protein spray that I actually pretty much use on all hair types, if you want to know the truth. It can act like a very light leave-in conditioner as well. Okay, look, my fingers are now parallel to the diagonal parting, which is pivoting from the crown. So if you're not sure how your fingers should be, have a look at the parting. Is it parallel? If it's parallel, you're good. If you start twisting it, you start affecting the distribution. And the distribution is the way the hair is combed. Okay? So, gonna check for balance here. I feel like it's a little bit longer around the front, but that's okay. We can check that. Okay? When you're checking for balance, use your 2 fingers and be more precise. Make sure you're very, very technical with your haircut. It's hair. You know, it's all about just making sure it's perfect and it's technical, but it's also suiting the individual. So I feel like it's a little bit longer as we get here. So I'm just going to point cut into the hair slightly. Stay still for me, please. Okay. And leave enough hair between your fingers and the guideline, because if not, you're going to cut yourself. So if you get too close to let's say that's your guideline and you're there and then you start cutting, you might chip your skin. So keep enough room between the guideline and the scissors and your fingers so you've got enough space to be able to detail the hair. Okay, second last section through in here. Elevating everything up and out, following the guideline. See, there's enough space for me to point cut quite quickly without chipping my skin. One of my friends who's a very experienced hairdresser, I'm not mentioning names because I'm not going to do that, but he's always got cuts on his fingers all through in here and through here because of the habit of keeping the guideline too close to the scissors and the comb, and it keeps chipping away at his skin. So just be aware of that and just give yourself a little bit more room and space as you begin to work technically and following with the point cutting technique. Okay, so just point cutting this technically, I can already visualize how it's going to sit. Now before I carry on, let's check for balance. Okay, it's got to be perfect for me. And it's half wet, half dry, so you can't visually judge the hair. You've got to technically check it because it can be quite deceiving when the hair is slightly wet or half wet and half dry. Okay, so it's quite balanced through in there. I think as we get to the front, let me just see. It's a little longer through in here, just as we get to the front, Ash. So coming back in here and just gonna go a little bit shorter. So my elevation, let me just see. Okay, just a little bit there. You know, a centimeter can be a lot, especially when you're working a precision haircut. So just making sure we're happy with the balance completely. Some people wouldn't check it as much and just let that go, but I guess I'm a perfectionist, and I think if you don't address it now, you will have to fix it later when it's dry. So it's better just to get it perfect the first time round. I'm sure everyone's agreeing with me on that. Do you guys agree with that? Lean in, engage with us, guys. We would love for you to ask some questions, please. Any questions is welcome. There are no such things as a bad question.
If you have an unruly crown, how would you approach point cutting?
If I have an uneven crown?
Yes.
An
unruly.
Okay, I would still do the same. The crown is the crown, and the only way the crown will be affected is not by your point cutting, but with the length. If you go too short with a double crown, for instance, it might spike up. So you've got to just be a little bit more careful, maybe leave a little bit more length, dry it off, and then I would just reduce weight if necessary. But I wouldn't go too short around a crown that's very, very strong. Okay. Come over from the front, you can start to see when I push this back, it's going to look so good. Even the wet look, I love that wet look back. People, you know, we used to put gel in the hair and just give it the scraped back look, which is going to look cool. What I want to do with the top, I just want to check it, to be honest. I don't want to go too short. You can see how there's a lot of length on top, but we've gone a lot shorter through the sides. So I just want to now go through and just check the top and make sure I'm happy with the way that's sitting. So we could do a couple of things here. I'm going to go horizontally, just do horizontal sections. Okay, so start from one side to the other in front of the crown and then elevate that up, and what you should see is a perfect point through in there. Can you see that little point? I'm going to just cut that like so. The reason why is because we've pulled the hair out. And so what it's doing when you come to check it, you're meant to get a little point through in there. So all I'm going to do is keep an element of that point, but take a little bit of that length away just to reduce a little length through the very, very top. See the point? And we're just going to, okay, I'm going to just check the previous section, make sure I'm happy with both lengths, and cut that square. Next section, very simple. Horizontal sections are taken all the way across. Okay, and you can take a little bit from your previous, so you've got at least a guide to work with. And just comb that back and then elevate everything over directing to the previous section. All right, and again, it's not much off, just cutting that much off. And the last section to the previous, everything's elevated up, elevated out, and we cut that square. Okay.
Was all this just scissors, or was clippers used for the nape area?
No, everything's been cut with scissors. Nothing has been cut with the clippers.
And why not point cut this area?
Oh, because I just want to strengthen the top. Because I'm not cutting too much off. You can see how it's kind of weak. I just want to strengthen it. So by club cutting, it will actually strengthen it for me rather than point cutting. Okay, again, just cutting a little bit off. I don't want to go extremely short around the front because I want enough length to be able to pull back and pull down. So this is one of those looks that could be worn forward or back. So that versatility approach, I think, is very important to every haircut that we do, rather than cutting it so it sits good just one way. Do you guys agree with that? Let us know if they agree with that.
I do.
They do, or are you just saying that?
No, I said that makes sense.
That makes sense. Cool, cool, cool. Okay, so I want to start to dry this shape, and then we can have a look at the back in detail. So you can see I didn't really cut too much hair from the top. It was more around the sides and the back, and then just really layering it through the front. But just have a look from the front, Ash, for me. I want to show you something. So if we put gel in the hair, okay, and we wore it like to the side like this, it could look so cool. Very, very, again, 80s, you know, very like Linda Evangelista, getting that beautiful combed look through, right? Anyway, let's dry it. I'm gonna use a couple of products. I'm gonna use the Defy Damage Protective Shield. Love this product. 3 squirts of that. I'm gonna use a little bit of the oil, Blonde Life oil. Put another squirt of that. So we've got a nice mixture. Now, what's really cool that a lot of people don't really think about too much is what I have in my hand with the 2.5 pumps of the Defy Damage and the 1 pump of the Blonde Life is something that no one has in the world. It's a nice mixture of product that no one's done. Maybe you've done it if you've done the exact same ratio, but I have a new product in my hand that I'm working with. And I think that's the great thing about combining products together, is because you start creating something fresh and something new for yourself. So don't be afraid to combine products together and create new textures into hair. Experiment, try mixing a lot of the products together. I think you'll be surprised with the textures that you actually begin to create. All right, so once we've got that in the hair nicely, this is looking so good. Are you liking it?
I love it.
We're gonna start to blow dry the hair back, and this is what's gonna give us a really cool 90s pop. For those who are just joining, you know, if you wanna show them the image, Ash, it's inspired by that image of Linda Evangelista, but we are actually doing a shorter version through the sides. Okay, so that's Linda when she pushed it all back. We're going to begin to blow dry the hair all the way through. I'm just brushing it so the product is evenly added into the hair. But you can start to see how that now, there's no problem. Before it was way too long and too heavy behind the ear. Let's dry the hair and have a look at how it's actually turning out. Okay. So I'm just going to begin to take a lot of the moisture out by using the paddle brush and stretching the hair from the roots. All right, and this will give me a much flatter look. And then later we can create more volume with the hair. Is that too hot? Is that okay? But first we want to take a lot of that moisture out. And then later we can brush through the hair and blow dry it. I think this is going to look great. Once you've got the hair in its position, with your fingers you'll be able to style it and create a little bit more of a natural finish. So with the back, again, I'm going to have a look. We might cut, I have graduated it with my fingers to a certain point. I might tidy up the bottom if it needs it. Again, I'm very visual, so let's see what the hair needs. I always do what it needs. I don't just mechanically approach hair. It's important that you look at it for what it is rather than falling into a habit of doing what you always do.
What's your favorite cold product for style?
Mousse. Mousse for me is the best product to blow dry hair in. Now you're probably saying, well, why haven't you used mousse? Very good question. Because her hair's pre-lightened, it has texture in it. It's been pre-lightened, so it has the texture in there. I don't want to add too much texture because then the hair could look a little bit too fluffy and too dry. So in this case, we're just working with the texture that she has and then working in a way so it's got enough hold, but also not fluffy and giving it that shine. Now, I'm going to push it forward as well, so don't think I'm just going to style it back. The finish is going to be pushed back, but as I'm drying it, I want to stretch out the hair in multi-directions. So the roots are nice and dry and the ends are nice and dry. Have a look from the front, Ash. Right. This is going to be a nice little haircut you could wear to the side, similar to that original picture. So we're going to go from left to right and then from front to back. And this just takes a lot of that moisture out for me. So it's going to be a lot easier to dry and to finish off. Okay, same thing now. We're going to go from the back here. And you're going to be able to see this whole step by step again on Joico's Instagram page. So be sure to connect on Joico's Instagram page and you'll be able to see the full step by step here again. And you're going to see the after images as well. Because sometimes we don't have enough time to finish it. Hopefully today we do. We have about 15 minutes left. So I should be able to finish it in front of you. But if not, you'll be able to see the finished result on Joico's Instagram page as well. So just going to get a little bit of volume. Okay, section by section. We want to stretch that out. Let's get the moisture out. Let's get a little bit of root volume. And again, let's begin to blow dry left and right, getting a lot of that moisture out.
When are you proposing us a natural inversion haircut?
Oh, if that's what you guys want to see, maybe in a couple of weeks. Next week I'm doing a classic bob, which I think is very, very key to what the trends are at the moment. But as a hairdresser, I think it's important to see a nice classic bob. So I'll be doing a classic bob next week, so be sure to tune in the same time, same channel for a classic bob. And then maybe a couple of weeks after that, I could do like a natural inversion for those that want a longer layered haircut as well. I try to kind of mix it up as much as possible with what I do on the Joico page, so you guys see really a number of different techniques rather than the same technique that gives you a similar result. So I like to kind of mix it up and share with you as many techniques as possible and as many different hairstyles as possible as well. So hopefully you guys are enjoying that. But you can see as I'm drying that it's a lot squarer through the back and the sides. So actually, if you could just go from the front. Again, this is not blow dry, I'm just drying it first, but do you see how it's a lot squarer through in here? It's not so bulky. And that was the problem that she had. So what I'm going to do now is just go now with the round brush and begin to just take some sections and begin to blow dry, especially the top area. So just going to work that, make sure it's on full speed and full heat, and just work where the hair wants to sit and then push everything back. So with here, push it all back, but create that little bit of volume and stretching out the hair a little bit more. The round brush stretches the hair out a little bit more. If you want to come round, look how that's nicely sitting through the back. Let's grab that a little bit more. Nicely blended in, no little steps. And if there's any weight, we can always reduce that weight later. Sometimes the blow dry can be a little boring to watch, but I think it's good to see how different people use a brush just to get different ways of finishing hair. It's not just about ironing the hair, it's about using the brush that I think is going to work on particular hair types and giving you that desired result. Once I've got the sides and the back dry in the direction that I want, I can then start to blow dry the very top. Okay. So you can take a section. Again, I'm not taking my sections too perfect, because I just want to get a little volume through in here. And then change the direction of the hair. So we're going back with it. Is everyone liking what they're seeing? Do they like the look? Are they? Thank you. Very Linda Evangelista, actually. As I'm drying, Ash, can you show them some of the pictures I was showing them when we first started? Because there's a lot of people that have just joined that might have not seen it. So guys, she's going to show you some of the inspirational pics. Not all of them are, but just shows you who Linda is and the looks that she had in the 90s. So as I'm drying this, she's going to show you some of the looks. And please, again, ask any questions if you have any questions to ask. Lean back slightly. Thank you. So by going the opposite way of what the hair wants to do, it gives you this beautiful volume that is very 90s inspired. Okay. And as we get to the front, I'm going to use a slightly bigger round brush. So I don't want the hair to be too bent. Hold that for us. I want it to be pushed back but still smooth. So we're going to take a section from in here, all right, and just work section by section as we get to the front. So working with this section first, brushing it out so there's no knots in the hair, and then we're just smoothing it from the root. So you're adding the heat to the root, so the direction is pushed back. Okay, next section. Through here, elevating everything back. Look up, there you go. Getting the roots nice and stretched out. It's on full heat, and then we stretch out the very ends. Okay, last section around the front. Hold that for me. It's going to look so good. All right. Get that last bit of hair around the front. And I think this is where we as hairdressers can spend a little bit more time. Is the finishing, is the way we finish hair, you know, doing a haircut that you've maybe done before that's kind of similar, and then styling it in a complete different way can give you a complete different look. So don't be afraid to experiment with the way you style, not just the way you cut.
Wanda wants to know about your blow dryer.
What about it? But blow dryer or blow drying?
Blow dryer.
Oh, it's a Dyson. Okay, so I'm going to put the heat down. Yes, babe?
Do you know the company who creates the brushes you're using?
I do not, actually. Sorry. But I do use Olivia Garden a lot, and they have so many good brushes. So I would recommend, when it comes to brushes, Olivia Garden for sure. I've got a drawer full of so many brushes. So I just kind of pick up what I can at the time, but I would recommend Olivia Garden. Have a look from the front, Ash. Look. So, it looks a little fluffy, it looks a little bit thick. We're going to reduce a little bit of the weight, but you can see that the shape, the way it's sitting is just beautiful through in here.
Do you have any suggestions on the type of salon you can work at that allows you to do Texas skills?
Say that question again, sorry?
Do you have any suggestions on the type of salon you can work at that allows you to do Texas skills?
All salons. All salons. I think it all depends on your clientele. I always say, what you project, you attract. So if you always do classic work, you're going to attract classic clientele no matter where you are. I've worked in Sydney, I've worked in London, I've worked in New York, and that's the same everywhere. So it all depends on actually the work that you do. If you do classic work all the time, you're going to get classic people and you're going to attract that. But if you do some nice, cool work that's a little bit different, it's amazing how many people you start to attract in that field. Okay, I'm loving, look at this, look how this graduation, I have not reduced any weight whatsoever. Look at the shape that we've created, okay? Look at the shape, where the weight is, okay? How it kind of comes down here and then works parallel to the graduation. It really doesn't need much done. If you start pushing it back, like we've dried, it sits nicely as well. I like it, you know, there's not really too much I want to do. I could reduce a little bit of weight through in there. Let's have a look at the back. I quite like the way the back is sitting as well. I might just use the thinning scissors just a little bit through the very top. So, gonna get my thinning shears. I have different thinning shears with different teeth. If you want to come around this Ash, I want to start from the back here, if you can. Okay, so we're just going to come from the bottom and just like break that up a little bit. I don't want it too short. I don't want it to look like a scissor over comb. What this does, it just softens the very hair and takes a little bit of that excess weight away. Okay, I want it to look expensive. I don't want it to look too shaved, okay, if that makes sense. Again, very 90s inspired. So by doing this, it just makes this area fresher because we didn't really cut too much off the very bottom, if you recall. Again, around the ears, I like it natural looking. Just going to cut a little bit off that. And around the other side. Yes, Ashley, go on. Any questions?
No, Dominic said, not just a great hair cutter, but a fantastic session stylist.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for sharing these tips, master of the craft.
Thank you. It's so sweet of you to say that. Thank you. And for me, that is my background. I do a lot of session hair, photo shoots, Fashion Week, New York, Paris, London, many shows in my past, and that kind of affects my tastes. And taste is so important as a hairdresser. And I think what impacts each and every one of our tastes is what enters into our, what I say, eye gate or e-gate. Let's say eye gate for now, because what enters into our visual mind comes through our eyes. And from our experiences, the way we've been brought up, where we've been brought up, the way we've traveled, etc., all of this has an impact on our taste. So taste is so important. And how you dictate your taste is by what you allow in your eye gate. So if you fix your eyes on fashion magazines, it's amazing how fashion becomes the inspiration and it dictates your taste. If you constantly watch hairdressing magazines, that's going to dictate your taste. And that's why I wanted to start off with showing you guys some Linda Evangelista looks from the 90s, because that has dictated my taste today to create this 90s editorial, shorter inspired haircut, which I think looks so cute. So just around the front, Ash, just around here, I'm not going to take too much weight, so I'm just going to just point cut a little bit. It doesn't need too much. The haircut itself has created a beautiful shape for me, so I don't need to really, overly texturize the hair. It's nice with the way it's sitting. And just around the ears, I would just take a little bit of that off, just so it's softer there as well. And again, this can be worn flatter and forward as well, because I know she's not going to wear it back all the time, even though I'm sure she likes it. We're going to allow it to sit on both directions. Cool. All right, now with the top, the hair is thick, so I'm just going to go in. I'm going to point cut just a little bit, guys. We're not going to aggressively take too much weight away. Just a little bit through the very top, and this will just take a little bit of that excess hair away, so it's going to be much easier to manage. Okay, not too short around the crown for those who asked me earlier. Okay, going to take horizontal sections the same way we approach the hair. Okay, and whatever comes up in my hand and reaches that square line, we just take a little bit of the weight away. And by point cutting, it's not going to be too aggressive, especially when the hair is pre-lightened, the hair swells slightly. Okay, how long we got, Ashley? How long we got on the, did it tell you how long we got?
About 3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay, cool. So, now we're just going to put some product in, guys. I want to try to fit in a little bit of time just to put products in. Okay, the product we're going to use that I love is the Body Shake. Body Shake, put it on my hands. It gives me shine. It's like a wax almost. Hold that for me. I don't want to go over an hour, so we're just going to begin to put the product in through the side, through the back, and then create this cool Linda Evangelista look. For those that, want to see the finished results, I'm going to be posting it onto the Instagram page of Joico, so keep an eye out for it. Come around the back, Ash, quickly. Come around the back. So you can see the shape all the way through. Very Linda Evangelista. I hate rushing the finish, but anyway, we will style it for you for the picture. Let's have a look. That's beautiful. Do people like it? You guys like it? All right, guys. So a quick little recap on this Linda Evangelista look that we've got here. Working the graduation tighter through the back and the sides, doing the same thing on the other side, and then working everything out and then working everything square.